going on, Ma? Welcome you guys to another watch party. It's a Monday. And you know, it's Monday, so it's the best damn day of the week. In case you guys forgot, or in case you just now heard that, start to figure that out because it's the beginning of the week where we get to talk about everything that's going on. You get a chance to make your week your own. The weekend's there, but we got the week. So let's get started on a Monday. Yeah, I'm starting a few seconds early. I told you guys in the chat what's going on. Good to see everyone. We have a new watcher here as well. Glad to see you here. Hope you enjoy it. It's a one-man show, in case you didn't know. So if you've seen the clips that we put up afterwards, this is where all the magic happens just organically. I'm just going to go and talk, run through these stories, run through a lot of video evidence that supports exactly what it is that I'm saying, my arguments that are there, and there's no need to argue about the rest of the BS that some people throw at you. Just want to let you guys know that. I'm in a bit of a mood already, so I'm already talking too damn fast, but I got like 100 videos, bro. Got like 100 of them that I got to go through from these 3 stories that I'm going to hit. They're going to take us this much time to go. Right after this, I'm going to be on the damage report with John Idarola, as you guys normally see on the Mondays. Spread that Monday love over there as well. So we're going to run through a bunch of things now just to get us started. If you're enjoying it, like, subscribe, share that stream. And when we're done, as I mentioned before, these stories will be back up on the Watchlist TYT page as well. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and share those as well. The best thing is to like and share. I mean, if you might have already subscribed now that you're here. Either way, we'll take it all. There's a theme today through just 2 of the stories. So I'm going to split them from first and last. But the theme that we've got today, as we're talking about this rogue dictatorial wannabe president that's in the White House right now, is he has an issue with people that are smarter, stronger, faster, more intelligent, and speak much better than this guy does. And he's on a war path against them. So you know what savage people that are too stupid to do anything for themselves do is they unleash war machines and military on cities of people that they just don't like because he's a dictator. Let's start with this president and who he's going after, as he's been going since the beginning of the weekend. Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and don't forget that theme: smarter, more intelligent, and much, much stronger than the piece of trash that's in the White House. Let's go here.
Keep our name out of your mouth. If you're not willing to visit our communities and invest in our communities, keep our names out of your mouth. If you're not willing to dream with us and build with us. If you're not willing to understand that we are not deficits that have to be fixed, but assets that have to be unearthed. If you are not willing to understand the pride and the beauty of this city and this community, keep our name out of your mouth. Because if you were willing to visit, if you were willing to spend time, if you were willing to actually walk our communities, walk our streets, and not just talk about us from the Oval Office, you would see what we see. That this moment is not just a moment of celebration, but it's a moment of vision.
Yes.
The vision of the people here.
Yes.
The people who believe. And I want to be clear that today is not a way of saying I told you so to people who do not believe us. Today is a way of saying thank you to the people who did believe us.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore speaking out against Donald Trump because Donald Trump is a trash human being and he's jealous of the person that Wes Moore is that Donald Trump never could be. That's why he's upset at Wes Moore, and that's why he's targeting Maryland, specifically Baltimore in Maryland, as the next city and state that he'd like to then go invade and occupy with his military, because that's what this dictator wants to do. So in response to that, Wes Moore is now speaking out more effectively and more directly at the wannabe dictator in the White House. He wasn't done. He went on Sunday shows. He spoke on Face the Nation about how ridiculous it is. This veteran of the United States of America, well-decorated veteran of this country, went to speak about what it is that our National Guard and our military should be doing and how they actually operate, because, you know, Donald Trump doesn't know anything about that.
We know the president watches the program, and he likely saw the guest listing because he's tweeting about you or truthing, I guess. He says the governor, Wes Moore of Maryland, has asked in a nasty and provocative tone that I walk the streets of Maryland with him. A few weeks ago, the deployment on the streets of Los Angeles, the governor of California tried to go to the courts, and he was unable to stop it. The reality here is you can't stop the president from sending troops to Baltimore if he wants to.
The year before I became the governor, in 2022, Baltimore was averaging almost a homicide a day. And I came in and I said, I refuse to be a governor who just offers thoughts and prayers to this situation. So we said, we're actually going to work in partnership with Mayor Scott, work in partnership with local elected officials, work in partnership with local law enforcement. We made the largest investments in local law enforcement in our state's history, over $50 million going to Baltimore City alone. And also Maryland became one of the only states that actually helps to fund the U.S. attorney out of balance sheet, taking many of those gun crimes and actually turning them into federal charges. And the results have been incredibly encouraging. The homicide rate in Maryland is down over 20% since I have been the governor. And the last time the homicide rate was this low in Baltimore City, I was not born yet. And so the reason that I've asked the president to come and join us is because he seems to enjoy living in this blissful ignorance. These tropes and these 1980 scare tactics. Just last week, I was in Baltimore. And I was with a group called We Are Us, who's a violence intervention group. And they say, we're all we got, we're all we need. And that's exactly how people in this community feel. Because while the president is spending his time from the Oval Office making jabs and attacks at us, there are people actually on the ground doing the work who know what supports would actually work to continue to bring down crime, but it's falling on deaf ears of the president of the United States.
Donald Trump doesn't want to hear facts. He doesn't want to hear the things that Governor Moore is saying there, because Donald Trump doesn't have the capacity to understand these things. But all he understands is him talking about how these states and these cities are going to be unable to stop me from invading them and occupying them. That sounds like a terrorist to me. And last I checked, in this country, what we do with terrorists is we stop them, we fight them, and we don't accept them, and we definitely don't negotiate with them. But Wes Moore still had enough intelligence and wit about him to say, come down and walk the streets. If you want to be real about talking about crime, which we know that you're lying about, it's not like Wes Moore doesn't know that Donald Trump is a lying piece of trash. What he knows is that as soon as he invites him to come and see the reality on the ground, or what it is that he's making up all these lies about, what he'll know is that he'll be seen to be proven wrong to his face, and where the lies and propaganda are going to go next. It's impossible. That's why this president then decided to attack those invitations as nasty. But nothing's nasty, apparently, him about controlling the courts and saying, yeah, I can do whatever the hell I want and unleash the military on American citizens. Now, he also more spoke about how crime has been decreased in that state overall since he's been in office, with reasonable things behind it, and that's investing in the people there. That's something white supremacists like Donald Trump don't want to accept, because that flies in the face of their belief systems that, anybody that's not a cis male white person is not worthy of any investment in our country. He's un-American. He's a white supremacist. He wants to bring back Confederacy, who are the losers who lost this battle before in this country. He knows that that's the roots of this country, though. So he's going to continue to go down that route. Luckily, though, Wes Moore is too intelligent for that. And he went down more of the route of saying why even him unleashing these armed troops on the streets also doesn't make any sense.
Why, though, are you so opposed to this deployment?
Well, there's plenty of reasons. One, it is not sustainable. You cannot continue this type of pace of operations, particularly when it's costing over $1 million a day in order to do this. The second, it's not scalable. You're not going to be able to do this in every single major American city, particularly when many of the cities that have the highest crime rates are the places that have actually deployed their National Guards to Washington, D.C. So who's going to go do the work in their cities? The third, it's unconstitutional. It's a direct violation of the 10th Amendment. And for a party that talks about state rights, it's amazing how they're having such a big government approach in the way they're conducting public safety. The fourth reason is because it's deeply disrespectful to the members of the National Guard. As someone who actually deployed overseas and served my country in combat, to ask these men and women to do a job that they're not trained for is just deeply disrespectful. And so when we're thinking about all of these lasting factors, when we're thinking about the fact that it serves as a distraction from the fact that the president's disastrous economic policies are making everything more expensive for everyday Americans, is making life harder for everyday Americans, there is a multitude of reasons that I am against this, and I will not authorize the Maryland National Guard to be utilized for this.
He doesn't listen to that because he doesn't believe in the Constitution. He said that when he was running. He said it when he was president the first time. He wants to suspend the Constitution. Don't forget, he said this a long time ago. So every time someone that's actually an American, someone who served the country overseas, like someone who keeps talking about sending troops that he thinks he owns never did, he ignores those facts as he doesn't like this country. He's a white supremacist traitor to this nation. That's what he is. He avoided his military service. We're going to get to that in a second. But not only that, but the details behind it. I'm wondering about all the people that were concerned about fraud, waste, and abuse and overspending of our funds and wasting our taxpayer dollars. Feel about the fact that this costs over $1 million a day, not overall in the 19 states that he'd like to unleash his army on, but in this one deployment that he'd like to then push on another city. He's already occupied Washington, D.C. I think as of this week, these guys are carrying long rifles and sidearms so that they can continue to ramp up their intimidation of this guy who wants to be a dictator to this country. So this veteran that served and knows how these things work broke down all the reasons why there's a problem. Not only that, but also some of these other Republican governors in Republican states that are sending their National Guards to help and fill up these other cities and occupy wherever it is that King Trump wants them to occupy. So states like Louisiana and West Virginia who are sending their troops, where's the protection for those citizens? You know, those red states that are being so tough. How vulnerable do you feel now when you can be an emergency in those states that seem to get, like, say, Louisiana, these hurricanes that destroy people's property and lives? And that's when real emergency situations are needed where National Guard comes in. If they're not there, what do those citizens of those states feel like when it does happen and your governor's already made you completely vulnerable because he's fallen behind a dictatorial piece of trash? It's all connected, and it's odd that the person Donald Trump is jealous of continues to break this down. I'm gonna give you every aspect of what is that Wes Moore has been saying. He even said it to Lawrence Jones, who they tried this bullshit approach to him, to say, well, let's get a black man to talk to Wes Moore about it, and then we'll say brother to brother, this is what he's doing. But he shut his ass down too.
Fact that I still currently right now have men and women who are deployed overseas doing operations. This is something that I take very seriously, particularly as someone who's worn the uniform, particularly as someone who's had to say goodbye to my family, particularly as someone who has had to trust the judgment of the commander-in-chief, knowing that the decision that they made was one that had not just the best interests of the national security in mind, but the best interests of me and my family. And so all I'm saying is this, is if we want to have a serious conversation about violent crime, we can have a serious conversation about violent crime. And I would love to be able to share the multitude of things that we are doing in the state of Maryland, where we are surging support for local law enforcement, surging support for predictive analytics and technologies, surging supports for community groups, and allowing more supports for the mayor and the county executive and the people on the ground doing the work. And we were able to receive some really encouraging and historic results in Baltimore and around the state of Maryland. And I never once had to mobilize the National Guard in order to accomplish those feats.
Governor, it's a different war now. There's more brothers dying here in these cities than overseas. So isn't it fair to have them there? And it's Democrats that agree with this measure. Don't take my word for it. The local cop there, the police chief, agrees with this. The mayor of the city agrees with this. And it's because people that look like me and you are dying.
No one needs to explain to me the pain that is taking place in so many communities. No one needs to explain to me the pain that is taking place in so many communities, urban, rural, and suburban, who are being besieged by this issue of gun violence, who's being besieged by this issue of chronically and generationally not feeling safe inside of your neighborhoods. And it's the reason that we have made it our top priority to make sure that people are feeling safe. But I can tell you right now, what people want more than anything in those communities is they don't want performative, they want performance, right? They're not looking for someone to walk around with military fatigues and a big gun. They're looking for someone who actually understands how to make people feel safe and how to make people actually safe in their communities. Our National Guards are not trained for this. I'm very specific about my role as Commander-in-Chief of the Maryland National Guard, and we know the missions that they are trained for, and municipal policing is not one of them.
So I'll tell you
and so
this.
if we want to be serious about making people safe, let's actually do the things that make people safe.
I'm well over time, Governor.
Once too much truth hits you in the face, suddenly time runs out. It's really odd how that works. But again, if you actually want to address the problem of crime, maybe follow behind the folks who have implemented strategies and policies that have actually done that. And then when those numbers come up, stop firing the people that tell you those numbers are the way they are. The same way that this, again, fascist dictator fired people who gave him job numbers that weren't in favor of his horrible policies that created this cratering of job numbers. They fired the military guy who was talking about the ineffectiveness of that strike in Iran of those nuclear facilities. They fire anybody who disagrees with the propaganda with too many facts. So he's definitely going after Wes Moore, because Wes Moore has facts consistently where he's talking about what it is that this guy is about. And it's really pissing him off, because nothing angers him more than a minority that he thinks he's better than telling him some reality that flies in the face of his white supremacy. It's just, it is what it is. And here's another example of that, because as you've seen all those calm explanations with facts, details, and proof and results behind his policies, what you've seen is a madman in the White House losing his mind in the last few shreds of thinning hair on top of his head. This is what he then said in response. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland asked, in a rather nasty and provocative tone, that I walk the streets of Maryland with him. I assume he's talking about out-of-control, crime-ridden Baltimore. As president, I would much prefer that he clean up his crime disaster before I go there for a walk. Wes Moore's record on crime is a very bad one. He has no idea what he's talking about, unless he fudges his figures on crime like many of the other, quote, blue states are doing. But if Wes Moore needs help, like Gavin Newsom did in LA, I will send the troops, with quotes, which is being done in nearby DC, and quickly clean up the crime. After only 1 week, there is no crime and no murder in DC. When it is like that in Baltimore, I will probably walk the streets with the failing because of crime governor of Maryland. P.S. Baltimore is ranked 4th worst city in the nation in crime and murder. Stop talking and get to work, Wes. I'll then see you on the streets. Also, this is the best part. I gave Wes Moore a lot of money to fix his demolished bridge. I will now have to rethink that decision. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and this dumb fuck is still talking about the same stuff he likes to talk about in his dumb tweets. So again, the same consistent propaganda. You can pull this right out of 1910 with Klan members talking about who crime is, where it's committed, who commits it, and how un-American and not real and less lower class citizens that these people are. As you can see, you see who he's targeting, you see who he's saying he's sending these troops into next, because he's afraid of these folks. Nothing scares weak white supremacists more than intelligent, strong minorities, Black folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, anybody that they've always hated. That's who they're afraid of when they finally say, you know what? Enough of this. Let me give you proof, evidence, and backing to the things that I'm saying, and enough people following behind exactly what it is that I'm doing. And let's do something real rather than this performative nature that this president only knows how, because he's a fake showman. He's not even good at that. All this is very transparent stuff. So again, the back end of that, when Donald Trump said that because apparently America is his, our tax dollars are his. He decides where that money goes, not Congress. Does that not sound like a dictator, or I'm sorry, a wannabe dictator, fascist? Because at some point we're going to have to go ahead and admit that that's what this guy is. I mean, the last few people left that are still holding on to that bullshit lie that he's not. So he's going to think about pulling back that funding that he gave Wes Moore for some bridge that, if you read it in his words, Wes Moore ran out there and got to knocking the bridge down like he's the Hulk or something. But still, there's a little bit of reality behind what he's saying with that bridge that he might pull his money away from. Watch.
Well, in his final months in office, President Biden is working to keep his promise to Maryland to pay for a new Francis Scott Key Bridge. President Biden is asking Congress to approve nearly $100 billion in disaster relief funds including $8 billion that would go to the Maryland Transportation Department to help rebuild the bridge. You may remember just a few hours after the Key Bridge collapse, Biden pledged that the federal government would cover the entire cost, which is estimated to be about $2 billion.
Weird how that works, huh? Also, during that little report, there was Wes Moore, governor, the same guy that Donald Trump has been attacking, standing next to sleepy Joe Biden, who vowed after allocating that money towards Maryland to rebuild that bridge that somehow Donald Trump just told you he gave and is going to take it back. Kind of odd how that works. So anybody who in your friends or family who still believe that this guy is an utmost liar and everything that comes out of his mouth is one, ask them which part about that is true. And after they have to admit that all of it is a lie, then ask them, why would you believe anything else that he has to say? When we've got proof after proof after proof of his lies. Ask them why they still believe him about his tariffs. Ask why they still believe him about breaking up and ending these wars overseas. Ask them why they keep believing every time he says there's crime in all these cities that we're seeing these decreases in crimes, but he's just targeting them because it's people that he doesn't like. Ask them why they believe that too. Because nothing he says is true. But that's what dictators that push constant propaganda do. And this is also something else that they do. Because again, he's scared. There's urine running down his leg. Donald Trump posted this. Did Wes Moore, governor of Maryland, lie about getting a Bronze Star? So we're back on attacking veterans. Not only that, but because Donald Trump brought up a Bronze Star because Donald Trump is jealous of Wes Moore for being a decorated veteran of the United States of America who served his country the way that so many Republicans say that they respect and honor, but they don't as long as a fascist starts attacking them the same way they did John McCain. That was only a blip. It was a bit of a hiccup and a bump right before the rest of this party said, you know what? Yeah, you're right, Trump. There was a second where I felt a little uncomfortable how you attack veterans consistently, but somehow we believe that you didn't call them suckers and losers. But still, now that he's attacking this guy because seeing how he was awarded a Bronze Star, he's threatened by him. That's way too many things that Donald Trump never could achieve on his own. That's why Tim Cook from Apple brings in some bullshit trophy with gold-plated Apple products on it. It's why he wanted to steal the World Cup trophy. It's why he wanted to steal anything that he can that's gold-plated because he's never accomplished anything in his life. He wants participation awards for something that he didn't even participate in. This is pathetic beyond pathetic, man. This guy's the biggest loser in the world. Never seen someone this bad. No wonder Vladimir Putin kicks his ass around every time he sees him because he's a loser. He's like, man, all I have to do is rub this guy into his chin and he'll do anything I want like a puppy. I put a leash on him and it said Donald and I tugged his ass around. That's why. Because that's what white supremacy looks like. It's weak. And it wants rewards for doing nothing. In fact, it wants rewards for disasters. That's what our country is going down towards, and he still wants you to thank him for it. So Wes Moore responded to that too. Crazy. It's almost like it's really easy to. So Wes Moore responded and said, did Donald Trump, the president of the United States, lie about an injury to dodge the Vietnam draft? It's like Trump doesn't remember his entire history of being an absolute loser who has to dodge real life courage and real life accomplishments to then attack people who actually have them. And of course, people remember this because Trump, again, I'll read this. He received 4 student deferments during the Vietnam era, followed by a 1968 medical deferment for bone spurs in his heels. That's what official records said. The diagnosing doctor's daughter later claimed it was a favor to Trump's father with no actual bone spurs in his soft ass feet. Michael Cohen, his right-hand man, his fixer, also testified Trump admitted that he faked it. Now, of course, Trump denies it because Trump is an incredible liar, saying that it was legitimate but temporary. But it's odd because there's no medical records that confirm or refute all this stuff. It's almost like he lies about everything. And it's almost like he's threatened by a well-decorated, intelligent, accomplished, results-based governor because he doesn't like the color of his skin. And he actually speaks for the people because he's a real American. This guy hates this country. That's why he's in the middle of destroying it right now. And the people that think he's on your side, he's coming after you too. Because I remember it was just violent, radical, criminal, illegal aliens, as they kept saying that they're coming for. American citizen streets are now filled with National Guards. And the federalization of police forces, they've now pulled out long rifles. Where is this approach to all these illegal, violent, criminal aliens of these 80-year-old women that he's snatching off the streets and breaking into their homes? It's like we keep moving that goalpost because the final goal is more white supremacy. So lastly, Wes Moore then left this icing on top of the cake because it's pretty clear where this is all going. As serious as these distractions are, he still had a chance to point out. Wes Moore says Trump is doing everything in his power to distract from the Epstein files. Really makes you wonder. We should continue to wonder. We're going to get to that in a second. Because on Friday, those Epstein files were supposed to be released from the Department of Justice to the Oversight Committee. That's why James Comer came out beforehand trying to deflect and say none of that was a big deal at all. But ever since they then released those files, 98.7% of it is stuff that we already knew. None of it has any names. And the bit of it that they're allowing us to see publicly, it's just fluff. It's almost like he's covering for the fact that he's on that list and he participated in despicable acts with children, while real veterans, accomplished people who are now trying to fix cities and states in our country, he attacks them too. That's who Donald Trump is. So next time you wonder why folks like me have Trump derangement syndrome, what you should realize is that he doesn't like this country. And since I'm a citizen of this country and I'm all a part making it better, and he's against what this country is actually about, you should probably dislike his ass too. Okay, let's go on to this next story. Let's see, is the chat running still? It's a little bit frozen here. Let's see if I can see if you guys are still around before I jump to this next story. I've been ranting and raving and yelling for a minute. There you guys are. Christina Elisa Brown, good to see you. Betty Pooper. I like it. Jumbo Jack is here as well. You don't like my music. Good to see all you guys. The same familiar faces and names. Let's move on to this next story, since an accomplished person who is actually doing something for the country spoke up about these Epstein files that Donald Trump continues to try and hide because he's all over them and he doesn't want people to know the despicable, disgusting acts that he participated in with little children. They released some aspects of that interview. I'm sorry, the whole thing. The whole interview that Ghislaine Maxwell had with Donald Trump's personal attorney, Todd Blanche, turned Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America. They released them, and now news outlets are talking about what is that's in those.
There's no list. There's never been a list.
And you never heard Mr. Epstein talk about such a list?
Never. There is no list. There is no, I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that. I never saw it, and I never imagined it. President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody.
Do you know whether, for example, President Clinton ever received a massage?
I don't believe he did. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
You're not aware of President Clinton ever going to the island?
He never, absolutely never went. And I can be sure of that because there's no way he would have gone. I don't believe there's any way that he would have gone to the island had I not been there. Because I don't believe he had an independent friendship, if you will, with Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell sat in there for about 9 hours talking to Donald Trump's former personal attorney, who's now the deputy attorney general now of the United States, about what it is that she knows and doesn't know. And apparently, everything she knows is how wonderful Donald Trump was, and that she barely knew him, except those times that she did know him, and he was very appropriate. Never saw anyone, never received anything, never actually interacted all that much. He was only Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. It's well adjudicated fact, but still, Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted child sex trafficker and rapist, apparently has credibility to talk about what it is she knows about Donald Trump, and conveniently it has all these great things to say about Donald Trump. And you know, in case you guys still wondering about her credibility, there's this guy. He's no longer with us. His name was Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe you've heard of him. They said he killed himself and that he was a child sex trafficker. But for some reason, this person that has all this credibility also said this about Jeffrey Epstein, convicted child sex trafficker who apparently killed himself in jail.
The 63-year-old also claims she never connected Epstein with underage girls, despite her 2021 conviction.
I did introduce him to women. I did, but not underage women.
Epstein victim Annie Farmer, who testified against Maxwell, says otherwise.
She didn't just procure girls and women for Epstein, but she herself participated in their abuse.
Jeffrey Epstein wasn't introduced to underage girls, but he was convicted and eventually died in prison due to those convictions and all the discoveries about his child sex trafficking ring, along with that person who just said it never happened. What the fuck is he dead for then? What are you convicted for? You guys just were some swingers and hung out with adult women who were completely involved and wanted to be in this whole thing. But next up, it's weird. Next, somebody's going to tell me that this whole thing is just a hoax and there was no children involved at all. That'd be really stupid for someone to say, wouldn't it? That'd be really, really unbelievable for someone to say something like that.
Your Justice Department is also sending some of the Epstein files over to the House Oversight Committee today. Are you in support of them releasing all of them?
Keeping it open.
If they wanted to
Innocent
release,
people shouldn't be hurt, but I'm in support of keeping it totally open. I couldn't care less. You got a lot of people that it could be mentioned in those files that don't deserve to be people, because he knew everybody in Palm Beach. I don't know anything about that, but I have said to Pam and everybody else, give them everything you can give them, because it's a Democrat hoax. It's just a hoax. The whole Epstein thing is a Democrat hoax. So we had the greatest 6 months, 7 months in the history of the presidency, and the Democrats don't know what to do, so they keep bringing up that stuff. But it affected them. Bill Clinton was on his plane and went to the island supposedly 28 times. I don't want to bring that up, frankly. You have Larry, whatever his name is, Summers, the head of Harvard, who was Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. Nobody ever talks about that. I mean, but I don't want to hurt Larry Summers, but he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. No, this is a Democratic hoax to try and get the significance of what we've done over the past 7 months. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They say it's #1 in history.
That haggardly tired old man, where it looks like his skin is slowly falling off of his bones, is the one that's talking about how this was a hoax. I guess there was no such thing as child sex trafficking. I guess there was no reason for him to then declare that he thought Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, and he distanced himself from him at some point after they were really good friends. And as he's on video saying he's into underage women, he's into them women on the young side. How does all that exist if all of it is a hoax? It's almost like he thinks everyone is as dumb as he is. But again, more of the lies. He brings up Bill Clinton must have been on that island 28 times. It's weird though. It's weird. That one woman that sat into that interview for 9 hours to try and exonerate you by saying you never did anything, she also said Bill Clinton never did anything too. So somebody's lying. Is it your star witness who's also child sex trafficker? Is it Ghislaine Maxwell that's lying? Because she said Bill Clinton never did anything. And you said he did, but you don't want to keep bringing that up because you don't want to destroy people's lives. Which one of you is lying? It doesn't matter to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a water carrier for this administration and this dictatorial president. So then she tweeted this. Glenn Maxwell says President Trump was never inappropriate with anyone and was a perfect gentleman in all respects. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says, I'll say it again. The Democrats tried to put President Trump in jail for the rest of his life, destroy his business, and take his wealth. And multiple assassins tried to kill him. If there had ever been any evidence against Donald Trump in any of the Epstein case files, the Democrats would have used it against him a long time ago. And lastly, President Trump has been vindicated once again. Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that Ghislaine Maxwell is a credible witness that vindicated Donald Trump. So everything else that she says, whether it be about overseas conflicts, domestic issues, she's bullshitting you. She doesn't believe in anything that she says. She just says stuff for political expediency. And if you prop her up, you're a sucker. And you're propping up someone who's going to continue to prop up this dictatorial president, who will also prop up white supremacy, who will also prop up sending military and troops into the streets, who will also prop up putting up people in gulags, who will also prop up murdering American citizens and murdering innocent folks who are here in undocumented statuses as well. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene stands for, because no matter how much she says that seems like it makes any kind of sense, she'll always go back to carrying his saggy ass in both of her hands as long as possible so she can gain as much power and influence as possible. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's almost close. It's a close race. I mean, it's head to head. We'll see how it finishes. She's almost as dumb as Tim Burchett of Tennessee.
I was the one that urged the chairman in the committee and move forward the subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. I think we need to get to the bottom of it. And I think President Trump wants to get to the bottom of it. And you know good and well, if Trump was on any of those files, anything that was bad and negative towards him, the Biden administration would have put it out. They had it for 4 years. Trump knew this guy, and he said he was a dirtbag. He banned him from Mar-a-Lago over 15 years ago before he was suicided. So I just think this thing is a bad situation. And I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it, because I don't trust the Biden administration, because they had those files for 4 years. I don't know what they've removed or doctored or changed. I don't trust them as far as I could throw the dome off the Capitol, brother. And dadgummit, we need to get to the bottom of it. That's why people, when you delay these things, it just allows the corruption to creep in. And I think that's what has happened now. And
dadgummit, Tim Burchett now suddenly doesn't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of the Epstein files. Weird how we keep getting little tidbits of information, and the more pressure that gets put on them to say more things like what Trump keeps saying to continue to incriminate himself and make it completely obvious that he's covering it up for his own ass, and his entire Justice Department is covering it up for his own ass. Suddenly, Tim Burchett, dadgummit, doesn't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. I mean, he's doing everything he can to make sure of that. That's for dadgum sure. But what he wants you guys to know is to leave this alone, because, Joe Biden must have doctored and changed things in those Epstein files, because he had them for 4 years. I'm going to remind you guys again. Jeffrey Epstein died in prison during Donald Trump's first term. Jeffrey Epstein got that sweetheart deal from one of Donald Trump's officials. Jeffrey Epstein files, if they're doctored or altered or scoured over the way that many officials in the FBI were directed to do in this term, they did it before Joe Biden got into office. But for some reason, Tim Burchett doesn't dadgum trust Joe Biden's office that didn't do anything when they could have done a lot more. You know who else Tim Burchett doesn't trust? He doesn't trust the survivors of these child sex trafficking rings. And he definitely doesn't trust this woman, Sarah Ransom, who talked about it as well.
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what she, Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years. I have.
Tim Burchett cares about those victims about as much as he cares about those children who were killed in that school shooting in his state as well, when he said, we're not going to do anything about it. If somebody wants to kill you, my daddy said they're going to kill you. That is, unless I'm rich and connected to power enough to avoid all that stuff. But you regular people, you're going to die. It's weird how this Republican Party keeps saying things like that. It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad. Jason Chaffetz, former Republican congressman as well, who's now on Fox News, he isn't buying this bullshit.
This is a person in Ghislaine Maxwell that knows a lot about Epstein, that he has, erectile dysfunction, but, plays the part of Sergeant Schultz and can't recall anything that anybody did any wrong. That list may not be written down on some nice, cute spreadsheet, but it's in her head. And I wish they would just ask her the simple question. Well, then the people who visited the island, start writing down a list. If you're going to get limited immunity, you better start coming up with a list. And you can verify whether or not President Clinton went to the island. Go ask the Secret Service. There's a reason. The Secret Service is secretive, but they're also law enforcement. And if there was a commission of a crime, they still need to answer questions. They shouldn't be bashful about asking them. And I think they should go to that direction. But I don't buy what she's selling at this point. She is highly motivated to say whatever she needs to say in order to get out earlier. But come on, there's 2 people that went to jail. Only one of them is still alive. And there's nobody else that did anything wrong. And you can't come up with anybody else who did. What were these young women doing going to the island? Playing hopscotch? Getting lessons on how to sing or play the violin? Come on. There's a lot more here.
There's a lot more here. If only he'd point out that the lot more here is the guy in the White House who continues to cover this up and act like we're all supposed to believe all these things that he said don't make any sense. 9 hours of an interview with his former personal attorney. His former personal attorney, who was standing next to him as he got convicted of 34 criminal felony counts. After that guy's name is Todd Blanche. You know who he spoke to? I'm going to remind you guys this again. He spoke to Ghislaine Maxwell and her attorney. His name is David Oscar Marcus. And what you may see that's kind of curious is those 2 guys are really good friends.
But David, in all seriousness to you, I know a lot of people that have worked with you. I know a lot of people who know you very well. I now consider you a friend and someone who I know pretty well. You are by far the best out there, and I'll always say yes to this podcast. It could be the first 3-peat.
Let's do a 3-peat.
But David, in all seriousness to you.
There's those 2 best friends. How they'll always do their podcast together because they're going to have some 3-peats. I guess the third part was when they all hung out together and asked Ghislaine Maxwell a bunch of questions, and she answered them the way that they wanted her to, so that she could potentially, first off, get put to the minimum security camp that she's in from the maximum security one she's in, because she's a convicted child sex trafficker. But then after that, then have the president start floating potential pardons for her if she says all the right things. But by the way, again, as they're trying to fool people into thinking that this makes any kind of sense, that same guy, that same attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell, he came out after that long interview and said she answered all the questions. And we're going to dispel that in a second, but I want you guys to hear him lying first.
I think Ghislaine did a wonderful job. She literally answered every question. She didn't say, you know what, don't ask me that. I'm not going to talk about this person. She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody, and she didn't hold anything back. I think Ghislaine
didn't hold anything back in that secret interview with the deputy attorney general. And my best friend and I, as we both tag teamed on talking about how we can help clear her, and as well as Donald Trump, of any wrongdoing, considering she's already been convicted of these horrendous crimes. I want to show you guys some more reality. over on Aaron Burnett's show on CNN, there was something about this whole long 9 hours worth of tape, which most people don't get a chance to listen to. But this former FBI chief Andrew McCabe was talking about it with Aaron Burnett, and they noticed something about all that glowing talk that she had to say about Donald Trump and how it just didn't really make much sense. And it makes you wonder why, after he said she answered all the questions, she even answered the questions that she wasn't even asked because she had a specific direction in mind that she was going with. Listen to this.
Director, I just want to point out, I mentioned it briefly, but I want to emphasize something I said at the top of the program, and that is that Maxwell's first mention of Trump in this interview with Blanche came unprompted, right? He didn't even have to ask about him for her to bring him up. And then we played some of the things she went on to say in the most glowing terms, calling him president, not by his name. And you actually say that that's not a coincidence, that the fact that she kept referring to him as president and not by his actual name?
Yeah, I just think the entire thing, Aaron, is so curious. It's so suspicious. It when you listen to the tapes, you get the sense that Ghislaine Maxwell went into that room knowing what information she had to deliver to get their attention and to get their approval and to get some sort of benefit that she is pursuing from the administration. And the administration, in the form of Todd Blanche, went into that room knowing what information he needed, which was what she was going to say about Donald Trump's involvement or non-involvement. And both sides delivered to each other's satisfaction. Ghislaine Maxwell, unprompted, spoke glowingly of the president, referred to him only in the most respectful term, which, is obviously the way that he prefers to be treated. And we know that at the conclusion of this totally unconventional interview, an interview with someone who is purporting to try to become a government cooperator and has the opportunity to be interviewed by the Deputy Attorney General. That's something that never, ever happens. There are no actual line agents or investigators in the room to serve as witnesses or to document the interview in the normal way. It's recorded and then immediately released to the public, which is not something you would ever do with the testimony of somebody who you were considering turning into a cooperator. Nothing about this process was conventional or normal.
I've said it a million times. He's not even good at being a con man fascist. He's not even good at it. It's obvious. He's doing it right in front of you. If you got some petty street criminals that are brought in and talking about some robbery that went wrong, and then the one guy, they ask him, so where were you at on Thursday? And he goes, I don't know, man, but Jimmy wasn't there. That's what she did. They sat there and didn't ask her about Trump, but she said, Donald Trump is the most glowing, President Trump. She would make sure she makes sure he has his official title, President Trump. He's the most gracious, most appropriate guy I've ever seen in my life. As a matter of fact, he's glowing. The guy is such a good person. I'm actually really impressed that he became president again. It's amazing. The guy is wonderful. All I know is that he's wonderful. President Trump is wonderful. He's wonderful. He's great. He's wonderful. He definitely wasn't on the island. Oh my God. All those girls none of the girls that he was around, never at any point, they were all just 18 years old, and they were excited about the things that he forced them to do. And we're supposed to believe that. They don't care that we don't believe it. They also, lastly, I want to make sure we point out what the main purpose of all this is. The victims of these guys that the president continues to cover up, because he's one of the culprits, they still have no voice.
I don't know if you're interested, Aaron. I did try to talk to some of the victims, about what happened,
Yes.
the release of information. So I have a few quotes for you. Maria Farmer
Please share them.
said, Maria Farmer said, this is another slap in the face by the federal government giving a voice to this child predator. Annie Farmer said, I can't read it. I'm sick to my stomach. Marika Chartuni said she's like listening to Ted Bundy talk about his victims. Literally, what's the point? People like that can't differentiate lies from the truth. And this is who should be listened to. And they're given no voice at all.
As I said, there are, as we understand from a lot of the reporting, Tara Palmieri's reporting, over 1,000 women, now women, many of them at the time of the abuse would have been young girls, mentioned in those files.
Over 1,000 victims. Anybody who still continues to go around and act like this guy isn't who he is a protector of pedophiles and sex traffickers as they ran on bringing all this to the light. It's pretty obvious. Even the people, there was a point when Charlie Kirk was like, we got to get to the bottom of this. And he still didn't fully know. For some reason, he was still believing that the guy that he's been worshiping isn't who he really is. And at some point when they finally said, shut up, we can't have you saying anything that has any kind of sense behind it. He went, you know what? It seemed all weird to me, but I'm gonna side with my friends and just believe what they say. I have no reason to, but I'm just gonna side with them. People should have heard that and started understanding what it is that's happening here. And they haven't talked about it since, bro. But they'll bring victims of crimes that are committed by illegal immigrants that are in the country. They'll bring them up at the RNC. They'll have complete ceremonies and name bills after them so that they can change laws so these things won't happen again. There's over 1,000 victims of this guy, and they don't even want to talk to them. It's almost like it makes sense that they're the bad guys. Damn it, I got like 13 minutes and I got to go on damage report. And I got one more that I said I'm going to bring. I'm going to sandwich that Epstein story with the two instances of Donald Trump being very afraid and very intimidated by black men that run certain cities and states in this country. So he's sending his military towards them because all he knows is attack, fight, savage behavior, blood, and all of the fascist beliefs that he's got in his head. That's all that he believes. So he's now attacking Chicago. But before I even jump into that part, I want to show you guys who this, what he accidentally said about himself. Just this morning, I saw this right before I came on when I was going to talk about Chicago. So he brought up Chicago and revealed what too many people in this country don't want to accept.
It would be good to work together. So I'm thinking about, when I have some slob like Pritzker criticizing us before we even go there, I made the statement that next should be Chicago, because as you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now. And they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him, freedom. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person. And it would be good to work together.
Whoops. But some people are saying we need a dictator. I don't need a dictator. I don't want a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm sorry. Except he is. It's what he's always said he wanted. It's what he did with his weak ass military parade. It's what he's done with unleashing the military into the streets, saying they're his. It's what he's doing when he said he's going to withhold funds that have been appropriated by Congress, saying it's his. Any other money that flows to any universities or social safety net programs, he says they're his, and he can do whatever he wants. And some are saying that's what we need in this country. A lying propagandist dictator. So this is probably what you guys saw him talking about and the reasons why he's so mad at J.B. Pritzker and brings up his weight as if Donald Trump isn't a saggy fat ass.
We have to. And after we do this, we'll go to another location and we'll make it safe also. We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this. And it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one, but they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll have to.
He and his Joseph Goebbels keep talking about black people as if they want them anywhere near them. I mean, it's just the ones that he thinks I've done so well with the black vote. But every time a black person says anything to him, he calls them dirty names and says they're low IQ and subservient human beings. But he loves him some beautiful African-American women. Shut the fuck up and leave black folks out of your brain and out of your dirty ass, filthy mouth. That's all this guy is about. He thinks this means something. That's nothing but a taunt. He knows what he's doing and what he's saying. I mean, because, you know, Chicago is 100% black, right? Shouldn't all the rest of the residents of this diverse city in Chicago, shouldn't they be offended that he completely ignores their reality, their existence? The mayor of the city talked about this tyrannical asshole and what it is that they've actually been doing, how they're really going to push back on this.
But the president has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to arrest 9 people in DC. You know, that clearly he's demonstrated that he doesn't have a level of consciousness to understand what it takes to run cities, not to mention an entire country. And so, you know, look, we're going to remain firm. We'll take legal action. But the people of this city are accustomed to rising up against tyranny. And if that's necessary, I believe that the people of Chicago will stand firm alongside of me as I work every single day to protect the people of this city. The city of Chicago, one of the most diverse economies in the world, right? Again, you know, a city that has been, you know, founded and established on the values of working people. We're not going to surrender our humanity to this tyrant. I can tell you this. The city of Chicago has a long history of standing up against tyranny, resisting those who wish to undermine the interests of working people. We're not going to back down. We're not going to cower. We're not going to bend. We're not going to break. We are Chicago. We are the soul of America, and we will maintain that posture from now until.
He doesn't like Brandon Johnson. He doesn't like the mayor of Chicago because the mayor calls out his tyrannical approach to, I guess you can call it governance. It's just fascism. Matter of fact, whenever you do call them out for who they are, which is why it's very important to do so, let alone the people who are too afraid to do that, they then have to respond. Jeanine Pirro, who he snatched also from Fox News and had her drop her wine glass on the side, then now is working in DC, and she had something to say about that tyranny talk.
What my response to that is,
What?
You know what tyranny is? Tyranny is when you can't walk outside and go to dinner.
Yep.
Tyranny is when they shoot you and the person walks out of jail before you get out of the hospital. Tyranny is when people are not made accountable. And they should hope that the president comes in with this unified force. And his joking only 9 arrests, I'll tell you what the good news is that this mayor can't figure out. The good news is that they're afraid to commit crimes. When you have an increased law enforcement, people in the community, especially the crime-ridden community, they're saying thank you. They're afraid to commit. What my response?
It's the same talking points over and over again. Jeanine Pirro, for some reason, says the crime-ridden communities, because that's what they consider black folks. That's that obvious coded language that's not even a dog whistle anymore. But she's worried about tyranny. Well, tyranny is when you can't go out to your restaurants and eat. Weird how ever since he invaded Washington, D.C., reservations and people going out has dropped. Crime is down, and so is everything else. Everyone's on lockdown. I thought these people were upset about when COVID was on lockdown. Instead, they've got military guys in the middle of the streets with Hummers and big mine-resistant tanks rolling down the streets, and they say that's safer. But Jeanine Pirro wants to talk about how they've lowered crime. I want to remind you guys how little Jeanine Pirro gave a damn about stopping crime. This is what Jeanine Pirro accidentally revealed she cares about. It's not about stopping crime.
My prosecutors.
You just walked through the changes you'd like to see from the punitive aspects. What about preventative? Do you or the president plan to do anything to address the root causes of crime in DC, such as truancy?
My job is to try to heal the victims and prosecute the criminal. Everybody else can deal with rehabilitating the individual. I honestly am not concerned about why they commit crimes. My concern is if they commit crimes. My concern is the victims of the crimes. That's my job as a U.S. attorney. Go ahead.
But just follow up on that quickly.
Is a felony one.
And
Janine Pirro doesn't care about stopping crime. Don't let someone else tell you. Let Janine Pirro just tell you, I don't care about that. I'm not into stopping crime. She also blew off another question about them defunding programs that also help with crime, that also help with getting guns off the streets, that also help with lowering crime and gun prevention violence initiatives like that. She's against all those things. All she cares about is punitive approaches to things because that's what pays the bills, bro. That's what white supremacists want. That's what they've been wanting ever since they lost the Civil War and they had to let go of the people that they considered property. That, by the way, the entire country benefited from financially. It's why we became this powerhouse of finance. So which every time anybody does something different and they said, you're not supposed to be in this place. This country deems you a second-class citizen and supposed to be my property. One of those folks, again, is Brandon Johnson of Chicago. And he talks very explicitly about what it is that they're doing to lower crime. Now, it's weird how similar that is to the things that the governor Wes Moore of Maryland has been saying. He went through those things and how they've changed those things, but he doesn't want those things to be talked about because Donald Trump doesn't want to stop crime. Neither does Janine Pirro. You don't have to listen to me. Just listen to them. So really fast, this whole propaganda that Trump's talking about, I just want you guys to see he never has details. As I've said before, he's really, really bad at this.
On DC's crime, you said Chicago might be next. Are you making, have there been concrete steps that the administration is taking to do that? Or what are other cities as well?
I haven't spoken to him. He's grossly incompetent. I haven't spoken to the man. No, when we're ready, we'll go in and we'll straighten out Chicago, just like we did DC. Chicago is very dangerous, great place. I built great stuff there. I have the most beautiful building in Chicago, I think. But I hate to see what's happened to Chicago. Chicago is our greatest city, actually. Bob Tisch, a great friend of mine, passed away. He used to own the Giants and very successful at Lowe's. He said Chicago, I think they had their main office in Chicago. He said Chicago and San Francisco, the two greatest cities in the world. Now you look at what the Democrats have done to San Francisco. They've destroyed it. I own a big chunk of the Bank of America building in San Francisco. And, you know, it's just different. We can clean that up too. We'll clean that one up too. You know, if everything works out, and we've already had calls from other cities, quiet calls from Democrats. We'd love you to come here because they've lost control of their cities. I'm not going to say because I don't want them to lose their elections. But we've had calls from Democrats and calls from people generally.
Absolute fucking liar. Can't name anybody. I gotta go, you guys. I gotta go over to TDR for a second. They're panicking, I'm sure. I'll see you guys in a second. I got more to go. I might come back on afterwards and give you guys a couple more of those. We'll see you in a second. See you later, Ma.